Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. So this is going to be part 2 of completing the square, solving quadratic equations by completing the square. In this lesson we're going to talk about what to do if the coefficient on the x squared term is not 1. Well, simply put, we need to make it 1. So what you're going to do is take the coefficient of the x squared term, which is 2 in this case. You'll divide every term by that coefficient on x squared, which in this case is 2. So if I do that, I'll end up getting x squared minus 6x equals negative 7. Now we can complete the square. All I have to do then, of course, take my x squared minus 6x plus half of negative 6 is negative 3, raise that to the second power, which would end up being negative 7 on the right side plus that negative 3 raised to the second power. So the left side will become x squared minus 6x plus 9 would equal negative 7 plus 9, which the left side would turn into x minus 3, that quantity squared, would equal 2 on the right hand side. Now take the square root of both sides, you'll get x minus 3 equals plus and minus the square root of 2. So then x equals 3 plus and minus the square root of 2. And those would be your two solutions. X equals 3 plus and minus the square root of 2. So always start out by making the coefficient on your x squared term 1, if it's not 1. Alright, what's the next one here? Actually, here's what I'll do. Alright. We have negative 3x squared plus 24x is going to be equal to positive 27. Alright, so negative 3x squared plus 24x equals 27. Well, the coefficient's negative 3 on the x squared term, so we have to divide everything by negative 3. So if we do that, you'll get x squared minus 8x would equal negative 9. Now we can complete the square. So this will turn into x squared minus 8x plus, what is half of negative 4? What's half of negative 8? I just gave the answer away. That's negative 4, but you would raise that to the second power is going to equal negative 9 plus that negative 4 raised to the second power, which the left side will turn into x squared minus 8x plus 16 would equal the right side, the negative 9 plus 16. So the left side will turn into a binomial square of x minus 4, that quantity squared, would equal the right side, which is 7. So now take the square root of both sides. You would get x minus 4 on the left would equal plus and minus the square root of 7, which would simply give you x equals 4 plus and minus the square root of 7. So those are the two solutions. X equals 4 plus and minus the square root of 7. Alright, 6x squared plus 84x plus 300 is equal to 0. So we have 6x squared plus 84x plus 300 equals 0. Well, the coefficient on x squared is 6 and we need to make it 1. So divide everything by 6. You'll end up getting x squared plus 14x plus 50. would equal 0. Alright, so x squared plus 14x plus 50 equals 0. Which now, let's move that 50 over to the right-hand side, get rid of the 50 out of the left, so this would be x squared plus 14x would actually equal negative 50. So now we can complete the square. Take your x squared plus 14x plus what is half of 14? That's 7, but raise that to the second power would equal negative 50 plus that 7 to the second power, which would turn into x squared plus 14x plus 49 is going to equal negative 50 plus 49. So the left side turns into a binomial square of x plus 7 raised to the second power. On the right side would equal negative 1. So now take the square root of both sides. That would be x plus 7 equals plus and minus the square root of negative 1. Then, of course, x plus 7 would equal plus or minus I. So then you end up getting x equals negative 7 plus and minus I. So you have two imaginary solutions here. X would equal negative 7 plus and minus I. Alright, let's see. 4x squared plus 40x plus 280 is equal to 0. So we have 4x squared plus 40x plus 280 equals 0. Well, the coefficient on x squared is 4, and we need to make it a 1, so divide everything by 4. This will turn into x squared plus 10x plus 70 would equal 0. Now get rid of the 70 out of the left-hand side. This would turn into x squared plus 10x would equal negative 70. Alright, so now we can complete the square. This will be x squared plus 10x plus what is half of 10? That's 5. But raised to the second power would end up equaling that negative 70 plus that 5 raised to the second power. So this would turn into x squared plus 10x plus 25 is going to equal negative 70 plus 25. So the left side becomes a binomial square of x plus 5, that quantity squared, would equal the right side, negative 70 plus 25, that would be negative 45. So take the square root of both sides, you'll get x plus 5 equals plus and minus the square root of negative 45. So then you have x plus 5 equals, let's break down the square root of negative 45. Well, the negative 1 part is I, that's easy. But then 45 breaks down into 9 and 5, so you would end up having plus and minus 3i times the square root of 5, which means x would be equal to negative 5 plus and minus 3i times the square root of 5. And those would be your two solutions. X equals negative 5 plus and minus 3i times the square root of 5. Alright, I have about 4 more. let's see, negative 4r squared plus 21r equals r plus 13. Well, we got one thing going for us. The constant, we only have a constant term on the right-hand side, so that can be left alone. But for everything else, let's see here. We need to get the variable term out of the right-hand side, so subtract r from both sides. This would turn into negative 4r squared plus 20r would equal 13. Now, the coefficient on your r squared term is negative 4, so that means you have to divide everything by negative 4. So this would give you r squared minus 5r would equal negative 13/4. Now we can complete the square. So this will be r squared minus 5r plus what is half of negative 5? Well, that'd be negative 5 halves raised to the second power would equal negative 13/4 plus that negative 5 halves, all raised to the second power. So this would turn into r squared minus 5r plus 25/4 would equal negative 13/4 plus 25/4. So the left side becomes a binomial square of r minus 5 halves raised to the second power would equal the right side. Well, negative 13 plus 25 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is simply 3. So take the square root of both sides, you would get r minus 5 halves would equal plus and minus the square root of 3, which would just give you r equals 5 halves plus and minus the square root of 3. So r equals 5 halves plus and minus the square root of 3. Three more. So let's see, 3s squared minus 26s plus 2 equals 5s squared plus 1. Alright, so we definitely, let's start by getting rid of the s squared term out of the right-hand side. So subtract 5s squared from both sides. This will turn into negative 2s squared minus 26s plus 2 would equal 1. Now let's get rid of the 2 out of the left-hand side. So this will turn into negative 2s squared minus 26s would end up equaling negative 1. Okay, now the coefficient on your s squared term is negative 2, so we have to divide everything by negative 2. So this will end up turning into s squared plus 13s would equal 1/2. Alright, well, now we can complete the square. So you'll end up having s squared plus 13s plus what is half of 13? Well, that'd be 13 halves, but you're going to raise that to the second power. That's going to end up equaling 1/2 plus the 13 halves raised to the second power. So let's simplify this. You'll end up getting s squared plus 13s plus 169/4 would end up equaling 1/2 plus 169/4. So the left side will turn into the quantity of s plus 13/2 raised to the second power. The right side would turn into 171/4. Now let's take the square root of both sides. This would turn into s plus 13/2 equals plus and minus the square root of 171/2, which means s would equal negative 13/2 plus and minus the square root of 171/2. That one was a bit of a doozy, but those are your two solutions. S would equal negative 13/2 plus and minus the square root of 171/2. See, I have two more good ones. So we have 0.4 t squared plus 0.7 t equals 0.3 t minus 0.2. Alright, well, one thing going for us, the constant term is on the right-hand side. But we need to get the variable term out of the right-hand side, so subtract 0.3 t from both sides. You would end up getting, let me write in a different color, 0.4 t squared plus 0.4 t would end up equaling negative 0.2. Well, okay. So the coefficient on your t squared term is 0.4. First thing I would do is get rid of the decimal on that. Multiply everything by 10. You'll end up getting 4t squared would equal 4t, 4t squared plus 4t would end up equaling negative 2. Now the coefficient on your t squared term is 4, so you got to divide everything by 4, which would end up giving you t squared plus t equals negative 1/2. So I converted it into fractions at the worst. Beats a decimal, right? Okay. Now we can complete the square. So you have t squared plus t plus what is half of 1? Well, that's 1/2 raised to the second power would end up equaling negative 1/2 plus that 1/2 raised to the second power. So this would turn into t squared plus t plus 1/4 would equal negative 1/2 plus 1/4, which would turn into, on the left side, t plus 1/2, that quantity raised to the second power, is going to end up equaling negative 1/4. Alright, so do the square root of both sides. You'll end up having t plus 1/2 equals plus and minus. Well, negative 1 is I. You would end up getting plus and minus 1/2 I. Which means t could only equal then negative 1/2 plus and minus 1/2 I. So you got two imaginary solutions here. T equals negative 1/2 plus and minus 1/2 I. And I have just one more. W squared over 24 minus W over 2 plus 13 over 6 would equal 0. Alright, well, first thing I'm going to suggest we do is, since you have 1/24 times W squared, multiply everything by 24. So that's going to make this a lot better because it's about to turn into W squared minus 12W plus 52 is equal to 0. So that's so much better. We don't have any fractions now. Okay, let's continue then. Next thing we got to do is get rid of the constant term out of the left. So subtract 52 from both sides. You get W squared minus 12W is equal to negative 52. Now we can complete the square. So you have W squared minus 12W plus what is half of negative 12? That's negative 6, but you'll raise that to the second power, would equal negative 52 plus that negative 6 to the second power. So then this would become W squared minus 12W plus 36 would equal negative 52 plus 36. So the left side now becomes a binomial square of W minus 6, that quantity squared, would equal the right hand side, negative 52 plus 36 is negative 16. Now just take the square root of both sides. You'll end up getting W minus 6 equals plus and minus the square root of negative 16, which means W minus 6 equals plus and minus 4i, which would just give you that W equals 6 plus and minus 4i. So we have two imaginary solutions. W would equal 6 plus and minus 4i. So that's it for this lesson. Next lesson we will get into solving quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula. So I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.